I'm here with Rick to talk about The Lion's Daughter Bathhouse out October 13th. How's things going with you? It's been a long time since we've chatted.
It has. It's been a couple years. Things are good. Things are good over here. Staying busy.
So let's talk a little bit about this record, fifth album for you. Um, uh, did you have specific goals in mind? Did you had a vision board of what you wanted this album to give the listener?
I did, and then I ended up with a totally different result in the end. Um, first set out to write. It's like I want to write a straight up disco record. I want to alienate everybody, and I was listening to a lot of like Cobra Man and old Donna Summer and stuff like that. And I was like, I just want to have a full blown like disco party album that you put on at Halloween. And then I sat down with the guitar and just started writing metal riffs as usual. Um, so it came out completely different than I intended. There was, the early stuff that I wrote. I went back and looked at it was a little contrived, like trying to do this disco thing or whatever. Where really I just wanted to sit and play like old thrash metal riffs and throw, zombie esque keyboards over it. So it came out a lot different than what I set out to do. But that's usually how the records get written.
How the cookie crumbles, so to speak. Uh, oh, sorry, I heard some feedback there.
Oh, all right.
Um, Releasing this independently, did that add more pressure, more stress for you?
No, if anything, it just created a ton of freedom because I knew this time around, um, not that we were ever really swayed any direction by a record label or a producer or anything, but just being able to, you know, take complete control of everything and release it ourselves, produce it ourselves, set the date for when we want to come out, want it to come out. Instead of some January release or whatever like we've done before, we're actually able to do a Friday the 13th in October, which is like perfect for our band. Um, so, if anything, I think it created a better album. Maybe an album I just like better because I got to be a control freak over the entire thing, and it came out exactly how I wanted it to come out.
Do you mind if I ask?
Oh yeah, I mean that's an understatement. Yeah, it's every little detail has to be exactly the way that I want it to be. That's part of the fun of having your own band and your own project.
That is true, but in this case, you have control over everything, so you can really get into the weeds about all the little details, from artwork to release dates to which ones are going to be the singles. Which then takes me to my next question: was it difficult for you to pick the singles, considering the record's versatility?
No, it actually seemed fairly obvious this time around. Like releasing the title track "Bathhouse" first. It's the first song on the album. It's one of the first that were written. Um, I feel like that's a perfect showcase of what the album has to offer. Um, and then after that, Maximize Terror is a little more on the extreme, aggressive, crazy side. So that shows that there's that kind of nastier element to it as well. And then releasing in credits finally show like that's a song that's um, the vocals are like soft, like it's like crooning, which is something we've never done before, and it's showing like, hey, this is on the record as well. So Bathhouse is kind of that right down the middle of the song. Maximize Terror is an extreme on one side, and Credits is an extreme on the other side. So it kind of gives you an idea of everything that's to come with the record.
With the bathhouse, I have to ask you this: the video. We debated the video, as you know. We talked about all the different
Oh yeah.
details. Can you shed some light so that we can rest our minds in terms of what the hell was going on in that video?
What was it that you guys were debating in the end? If
If
was it
if she was dead or not, like we didn't know. Like was it your own blood? Was it her blood? Like because it kind of leaves you as a cliffhanger and it leaves it open to interpretation.
Yeah, so I think the idea was that it was my blood, and at the end, I'm very happy. When talking to that director who made the video, um, for some reason, the very first idea that came to mind, I was like, I was like, yeah, okay, well, the song's called Bathhouse. So maybe it looks like I'm going into somewhere that's kind of like a brothel or something like that, and I'm in for a sexy good time. But really, I'm just paying a woman to bash my teeth out, and at the end, I'm very, very happy about it.
Wow.
And he's like,
All right.
okay, we can do that. And I had to kind of think about it afterwards. I was like, oh, I had just gone to the dentist recently and I needed like this in-depth like tooth cleaning, and I had some dental work done. And I think subconsciously I just wanted my own teeth bashed out so I didn't have to deal with it maybe.
Well,
So
that's a weird way of approaching that subject, but it worked out okay. You mentioned that you had a different vision originally of what the end product ended up being. When you're putting a vision together, regardless if you reach that vision or if you discover another vision in the process, do you ever look back at how you approached previous records and take some lessons from those and trying to incorporate that on a new album?
to a degree, yeah, but in general, I kind of just try to turn my brain off mostly when writing, especially with this record. I tried to just not really, weirdly, just not think about what I was doing at all and kind of just find, I might sound pretentious to say, find the muse and just be fed these ideas from somewhere. But that's kind of how this was written. Like things just came to me and I didn't know where they came from. I don't feel like I wrote this record. I feel like it was just fed to me by fucking ghosts or something. Even lyrically, words would just come to me, and I would be writing down. I'm like, where are these words coming from? What the fuck does this mean? So I didn't think a ton about the last record, other than all the things that I don't like about the last album, or really any stuff that we've done previously, is anything that I can kind of see a little of myself and my intention in. Like if I listen to something, I'm like, oh, that's where I was trying to make this riff sound like old KMFDM, or this is where I was trying to write a song that was more Nine Inch Nailsy or whatever. I don't like that contrived element or something that feels false about it. So I kind of just tried to not do that at all this time, and just try to sit down with no intention whatsoever and just kind of listen for ideas and write it that way. I think to me it made a better album, and it made an album that I'm more comfortable with and I can enjoy listening to a lot more, because I don't hear any forced ideas in there. Whereas with the previous stuff I do a little bit.
It's funny you mentioned Nine Inch Nails because when I was listening to this record and I already recorded my review, I said that you guys are kind of like the Nine Inch Nails of the new generation. Because I see the vision in terms of how I interpret your vision of what you're creating is very similar how I digested a Nine Inch Nails record. I take the same roadmap from a listening standpoint. Do you, I know you don't like to look at those comparisons and you try to stay away from them, but do you see your music providing the listener that same sort of environment that really becomes a little bit the listener's decision on how the music plays out and the atmosphere, and you kind of create your own vision in your own mind as you're going from song to song?
Yeah, I think so. In the same way, I think about, whenever I listen to the Downward Spiral for the first time. I remember listening to it. I went in my bedroom as a kid, and I turned the lights off, um, and listened to that record. I just laid in bed and listened to that record and let my mind go wild, and just all the different images that would go through my head based on the sounds and the lyrics and everything of that record. I think you could have the same experience with our stuff, where I think it's atmospheric and layered enough and just moody enough, that you could have a similar experience and just sit in the dark and have a little movie play out in your mind over the 40 minutes of the record, or whatever.
Yeah, this is definitely a heavier album. Has a lot more guitars. It's a lot chunkier. But I want to ask you about the synths. What kind of role did you envision for the synths on this record, considering that the guitars were going to have more of a predominant role in the forefront?
Again, it's one of those things I didn't think about a lot. I just kind of let it naturally come together. But I think the synths aren't quite as busy for the most part. Like in a lot of spots, if the guitars are louder and they're riffier, the songs are more guitar driven. Well, then the synths can kind of just hold out melodies that go um, over the top of it and kind of just color it and shape the riffs a little bit versus taking a lead. I kind of think about it as like same with some old Faith No More stuff, especially like The Real Thing or something like that that has songs that are more riffy and they're more like the Jim Martin like heavy metal riffs. Um, with a lot of those spots, the keyboards would kind of just create layers on top of it. And they could complement each other in that way. And then the same way, and then like there was a song or two on the record where the synths do kind of carry the lead melody and are a little busier. And those are the spots where like, well, the guitar just needs to ring out chords over this and kind of follow the bass more. And everything you got to find a place for everything to just kind of coexist in a way that doesn't sound overwhelming or like like crazy prog metal or something, which a lot of people probably love, but just doesn't click with my brain as well. I need some meat with the potatoes and
I'm with you. I'm the same way. I'm exactly the same way. And I gotta ask you, how big of a fan of Stranger Things are you? Because some of the tracks on this record, specifically some of the intros, I mean, you could totally work on a show like that and create their soundtrack.
yeah. Well, okay, so I take that as a compliment. That's a
Yeah,
good
no,
thing.
it is a
Yeah,
compliment.
I know people love that show. I don't. And I know it's just so like, oh, I'm too cool for it. But I watched the first season and I was like, there's some ideas in here I like. I like the soundtrack and all that stuff. And I think halfway through the second season, I gave up. So I don't know what season they're on or what's going on with that show, but yeah, just not
You're not a
really into
fan.
it. No, no, it's fine. I think it's one of those things. It's probably just me being a fucking jerk, but I think it's so popular that I'm just like I don't know. I see. So it was almost like that movie Barbarian. If you saw that, like I went and saw that movie and I was like, this is cool, but every single thing in this I can just trace back to something else. Which I mean is also maybe a criticism you could say of our band also where like oh lines are well I've heard all of these things before from other things but that's kind of what I feel like with Stranger Things just everything I'm like it's a lot of references and nostalgia and I don't know I would rather just see something a little fresher.
But when it comes to music, are you a fan of the soundtrack?
Yeah, I think I can only really remember that also if you hear chaos I've got two dogs just running full
It's
speed
fun.
around me. Okay. um, um, I think I just kind of know that main theme,
Okay.
and it's cool. Yeah, I mean, I love, and I think that's what made me watch the whole first season to begin with. I was like, oh shit, this sounds cool, and just even the way that the intro would come together, I thought was really neat.
So let me ask you this: for a musician as yourself, somebody who enjoys that sort of sound, because if you listen to the what do you call it, the theme song of that show, you can find some resemblances in some of the elements that you use. If you had an opportunity to work on a show like that, create a soundtrack like that, would that be something that would motivate you? Would that be something that would inspire you?
I think so. I would love to do like if you follow Nicholas Winding Refn, that guy. He's the guy. I think he's best known for Drive. Um, but he did Neon Demon, and he's done a couple series. He did Too Never Too Young to Die, or something like that on Amazon, and then he did Copenhagen Cowboy on Netflix, and his shit's great. It's super moody, and the soundtracks are very synth heavy and intense. And I'd love to be able to score something like that, with adding whatever elements from our band we would normally add, whether it's guitar and drums or if it was just more nasty synth sounding stuff. Like I think that would be really fun to do something like that.
In what part of the process do you, when you're putting a record together, do you go looking at the vocals in terms of of what do you want from the vocals, what kind of impact, what kind of diversity. When does that come into the picture?
Usually that's after the main parts of the song have come together. Like I kind of know as the music is being written, um, like okay, well this part will be the chorus and this will be, and I kind of just try to figure out what I hear in my head, just from if I've got a hard drive of every album I've ever owned in my head somewhere, I just try to check that computer and see what kind of vocal would match or complement the music the best. And sometimes it's immediate and really obvious, and then other times it's not. I mean, I think even Bathhouse had a different chorus before I landed on the one that I had. I think originally I kind of heard it more like something that would be like a current Mastodon or something. I heard like a chorus like that. I was like, all right, I was out on a walk, out walking the dogs, and I came back and I tried it, and I'm like, this doesn't work. This doesn't fit my voice. Let me try something else. And I think I just kind of started humming along to it and found a vocal melody that worked. And then it was like, let me just find the syllables and the sounds that match what I'm humming. And those just instantly became words. And it was like, oh shit, and these words make sense together. And this is the song now. So the all the vocal stuff is usually the last thing. Um, but the main difference with this album, where before it was always just okay, what's the rhythm of the scream that's going to be over it? This time it was like, let's see if I can hear an actual vocal melody, and then see if I can half-ass sing whatever I'm hearing or not. And usually I couldn't, so I would have to try to find something else or find a different range to put it into. Um, but yeah, the vocals were more fun this time because it was a lot more interesting just to me to do something different, which was just sing a lot more.
Did the synths help the vocals be a lot more fun for you? Is there a correlation between those two?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think maybe just in the way that this album I think is more rooted in what I would call like traditional heavy metal, like in spots, and then thrash metal and stuff like stuff I grew up on comes out a little more. Um, that made it easier to me to think like um, instead of industrial or whatever in the past, to think about like, okay, this kind of sounds like it could be a Dio riff or an Ozzy riff or something. What would Dio sing over this? And okay, well, I can't sing that, so let's find something similar that I could pull off. So so I think that did make a difference. Where if it was just more straightforward, like black metal sounding stuff, or industrial or whatever, I might just hear that screamy, barky vocal in my head, where kind of going back to old school stuff was generally more singing, like in the 70s and 80s stuff. So I think that did change it a bit.
Did you enjoy listening back to it when you were going through the process? Because I know, like you said, you micromanage, you get into the weeds. So when you're recording your vocals, how many times do you go back, you listen, not what I like, try again until you finally get it?
Um, Quite a few until the first time it's right, I'm then done with it. I don't tweak it at all after just if I get the one take that sounds good, I'm like, okay, moving on. I don't want to have to deal with this or think about it ever again. Um, but if it's not right, like I can't live with something that doesn't sound like the perfect thing for the song.
Do you have a sounding board? Like, is there like do you check with other people around you when you start to feel that maybe you're overanalyzing?
No, no, not.
Well, you did say you micromanage, so
Yeah, because I mean, because you could even this album was recorded by Gabe Ussery here in town in Encapsulated Studios. And he's one of my dear friends, and he's an amazing engineer, and actually he's a really great musician as well. But um, previously the last three albums we worked with Sanford Parker, and I was a fan of Sanford's before we started recording with him, so you know, I have a lot of respect for him. So if he was like, "Hey, this doesn't quite work. Try this instead," I'd be like, "Okay." And with Gabe, since we're close friends, he'd be like, you know, he'd be like, "That note clashes with that note." I'd be like, "I don't give a fuck. Hit record. Like this is the way I want it to sound." So it was very much like, even if you told me that something wasn't good or wasn't working, I wasn't listening to you. I was also like, I'm the guy fucking paying for it this time. So if it's wrong, I don't give a shit. Record the wrong thing. But there's nothing like looking back at the album, like, you know, there's nothing I see that I would have done different, like almost at all, which is nice. And it's the first time that that's happened, you know. There's not that extra song that I don't want on there. On the last record, there was one song that was like, cut this song. And they're like, nope, we should keep it on. It's a good song. And I fucking hate it. I hate the song. And this time, it's only 9 songs instead of 10. So it's almost like that bad song we just didn't include this time, you know? So I'm really happy with, I'm probably the happiest with this album of anything that we've ever done.
You're largely.
I'm a control freak. Yeah. Yeah.
I got one last question for you, which is the record is about to come out. October 13th is just around the corner. By the way, that pick of Friday the 13th is absolutely phenomenal. So I really think fits you guys to a T. But what's next for you? Well, what plans do you have? Are you planning some touring? Are you planning some shows? Like, where can fans catch you guys?
Right now, there's not a lot happening after the release show in St. Louis. There was we were supposed to tour with Goblin, um, not the Claudio Simonetti version, but the other version. And this was the 4th time that that tour has been booked and then canceled. So that was pretty discouraging. Um, so we're really not doing shit after this release show. There might be some shows after that, but I think we're all busy. Like I'm in the middle of opening a business and some other stuff, so band stuff will kind of take a little bit of a back burner until there's an opportunity to do something that we find exciting. But the whole, you know, um, especially just doing everything independently, I've always been bad at booking shows and making contacts and schmoozing and playing the industry game. Um, so if I was trying to book stuff, it would be driving to some town in Illinois that nobody's ever heard of to play in the corner of some bar to 15 people who are drunk and don't give a shit. And we've done that. Like we've done that enough. So really, if like a tour opportunity comes along that seems worth it for us, we would love to do it. I still love touring and love playing live and stuff. But just right now, that opportunity hasn't been there. The industry seems a lot different than it was before COVID. That's why we haven't toured since. So
I think that's a good approach. Not forcing the situation, just kind of waiting for things to happen when they feel right for you versus putting yourself in almost in a position to fail to a certain extent. If you're feeling like you're doing something because you're forced to do something, not because that's what fits you or what's right for you at the time. So
yeah, and I think that's part of you know the key to longevity for this band is we don't really do things we don't want to do. We don't say we have an album coming out. Well, fuck, we need to be on tour with somebody, so let's partner up with this other band that nobody's ever heard of, and go out and just eat shit for weeks because we're supposed to. Like we don't do that anymore, and I think that's why we're able to keep going because I mean that's a lot of times why bands break up. You know, is as it becomes a job and it becomes um, a chore and a thing that you know that you have to do, um, and we don't. So we just say fuck it, let's make a record. If an opportunity to play some cool shows comes up and we want to take it, we'll take it. If not, we'll hang out at home until we make another record.
I got to be honest. I've been to St. Louis many times, specifically Chesterfield,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
because of work. And I've never been jealous of anybody in St. Louis until now, because I would really love to see you
Oh
guys play live. And I'm just gonna have to sit back and wait until that right opportunity comes along, and then we will get to chat in person, and I'll get to see you guys. But in the meantime, you have a great record, Bathhouse.
Oh, thank you.
You know, if you don't mind me saying, it's the best album you guys have ever done. It
Oh,
really
thanks.
sounds, from the mixing to the production to the track listing, everything about this record hits at the right time in the right spot. It's just really well put together. It feels very organic. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel contrived. And all of that really comes across in the music. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. That honestly, that means a lot coming from you because um, I liked your take on our previous record, and I've even thought like, I hope Pedro likes this one.
Oh
So
man,
that's
I
great.
love this one. Like
That's great.
I love the chugginess on the guitars. It's a little bit more chuggy on the guitars. I felt like the synths played a role, but more of an atmospheric role, not necessarily driving the sound, but more being part of the sound. You know what I mean? And the vocals were way better.
Awesome.
So I just felt like I don't know, like somebody pissed in your cornflakes a little bit, and you were a little bit extra pissed off on
Yeah.
on this record. I don't know, everything felt really good to me. And I just really enjoyed the album. It was not one of those records that you can find a moment where you can just disconnect and walk away from. It's an album that you really want to sit down and enjoy it from beginning to end. And there's not
That's
many of
great.
those around.
Yeah, well, that's great. I appreciate that. Yeah, it kind of worked out perfectly that during the couple weeks that we were recording, I was personally going through like a really bad time. So I couldn't wait to get into the studio and just take all of the fucking just hate and frustration and everything that I was feeling from my personal life and just vomit that across the studio. You know, so if that comes across in the vocals and some of the lyrics I think are extra nasty on this one. I, I'm I'm glad I was able to take all that ugly shit and put it somewhere, and I'm glad that if you hear it, if you hear the piss and the cornflakes and it translates, then it's all
You
worth it.
did your job.
Yeah.
All right,
Thanks.
man. Rick, thank you very much for your time. It's always a pleasure
Thank
to
you.
chat with you. Like I said, I hope to see you at some point in time playing a show somewhere. Please don't make me come to St. Louis. I really don't want to do that, but you know,
You might not get out alive. Yeah.
it's just stranger things have happened. So thank you very much for your time. Best of luck with this release on October 13th, and we'll see each other again soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Take care, man. All the best.
Hey, you too.